Welcome to LSD, Life Song and Death podcast, where I, Kaylee Smith, talk to folks about the most trippy psychedelic experience called the human existence. Today I got my friend Brett, and we haven't really met. We haven't really talked in I don't know, what was it, like 10, 15 years, something like that.
At least 10, yeah.
Because we met going on a trip to Mexico.
Mexico, yeah.
Yeah.
2011.
Okay, so that was
That's when that
14
was.
years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah. And a missions trip with our old church. And then and so since then our paths have separated.
Yeah, yeah.
I grew up a lot because I was in high school. You grew up a lot in all your experience. So back then you were a teacher.
Yep.
And so I guess start from there.
Okay.
So getting from, because I know that you've had a lot of changes and transitions in your life.
Yeah.
On where you said you did a trip across the country just recently.
Yep.
And so
We did, yeah.
yeah, so jumping from how'd you go from teacher to jumping in a vehicle with your family and going across country, I guess.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we go back to 2011,
Yeah.
I had been at Goochland High School for
Okay.
about 2 years
Yeah.
at that point. And so, I don't know. I've been down in the Richmond area since 2006. I started teaching then.
Okay.
But I was in Richmond Public Schools first. So it was already 3 years there. And then, a handful at Goochland.
Where'd you come from before Richmond?
New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So my wife and I got married in 2006. We, August 4th, we got, went on our honeymoon, got back August 13th. And 2 days later, we put everything in a moving truck and came down to Richmond.
Okay, so this is a theme in your life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, honestly, more so. It's which is interesting because, I as I thought about this when you asked me to come on and just thinking about my life, there was a time that I think my world was so small. I was in Amsterdam, New York, which is a half hour from Albany.
Okay,
which is probably the best way to describe its location. But a lot of upstate New York cities. Small, economically depressed, not a lot of jobs, bars on every corner, drugs everywhere. And that's like a dime a dozen. You know? And so we were, we'd had kind of been, I started, my wife grew up in the church. I started going when I was 20 years old.
Interesting. Okay.
Kind of a real interesting story. I mean, I came out of really full blown atheism.
Okay.
So basically my wife had grown up in this, it's mostly Catholic up in the Northeast. So, I went to Catholic church, but it was just more going through the motions.
Right.
There was no, there was a big statue of Jesus on the cross and I couldn't even tell you what, I had no understanding of what it meant.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just a lot of the Catholic stuff, at least the way I experienced it in my family, was just very traditional.
Yeah.
You go, you take the communion and then you leave, and it's
Okay, so you grew up Catholic.
yeah.
Okay.
My grandmother, so both of my grandparents on my dad's side were immigrants. My grandfather was from Italy, so he was Catholic coming from Italy. And my grandmother was Polish coming. She was actually born in the U.S., but her family came from Poland, and she was very Catholic.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was never a thing at all in my having faith. It just I was such a 5 sense realm person.
Okay.
The thought of God was so absurd to me. It just zero, not even agnostic, just nothing. It's just impossible. I can't see it, so it doesn't matter. And we would just go to church, and as soon as we got the choice to stop going in middle school, we just stopped.
Wow.
So that was no thing. And so,
That's so crazy because I grew up in the church, and so I've always had and me growing up in church wasn't like you're growing up in church. I was in a full on Pentecostal in the 90s, and so it was it was a completely different experience.
Yeah.
And so when I hear people's perspectives of especially going into a faith based life
Yeah.
later in life after high school.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it was ironically, again, the church that my wife grew up in, one of my good friends in high school, his father was the pastor. He actually recently, my friend Ray, he moved down here. He
Okay.
lives in Richmond now, and he's
Cool.
he's been one of my best friends for as long as I can remember. Well, since high school, but so my wife grew up in that was that church,
Okay.
that weird church that does
Yeah.
the Pentecostal
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
but everything else was Catholic.
Okay.
So that was one church that was like a charismatic church. Maybe some, like, it's a very large Hispanic population
Uh-huh.
where I'm from, and so maybe there was a lot of like Spanish churches that were more charismatic. But
Sure.
like for the most part, everybody was Catholic / atheist.
Uh-huh.
So we didn't really have that as any backbone to anything, and we eventually stopped going. But as I got older, I just did what teenagers do, got in a lot of trouble,
Totally.
and so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
But I kind of had like an ego split kind of, and that was like the first thing that was like where I finally kind of broke off from myself and became like the observer.
Interesting.
I was probably about 19 years old,
Okay.
maybe 20, but I kind of like was like just myself kind of just like vanish, and I'm just like kind of watching everything from out of my body.
That's crazy.
And it was that first kind of like where I wasn't associating with the person who I was trying to be or whatever, and I was like this kind of knower, just watching and observing. And so that was the immediate thing. But I remember a few days later, one of my friends that was going to that Pentecostal church. He had basically said that that he was done with all the partying. He was going to this Bible school. He was going to become a minister, and he wanted me to come to hear him give his testimony at a church. So I was like, yeah, I'll go. I was always, I never cared what people did, like whatever, it's like, I'll support you with, whatever.
Of course.
And so I went with him when he gave his testimony. And, so it was one of those things when they were like, they did like an altar call after, and I kind of raised my hand, still kind of like not really understanding any of it or skeptical with it. But I remember a few days after that, like walking outside. I was living in an apartment in Troy, New York, and I was by myself there. My friends had gone home for the summer, and so I was just still working in the Albany area, like a part-time job, and just staying there for the summer instead of going back home. And all the college kids had gone home. And I remember by myself walking out on the front porch and just kind of having this like looking around, and like the spiritual world had come to the forefront.
Interesting.
And I didn't visibly see it, but I just knew it. I just knew it was there.
Okay.
And this was about at 20 years old.
Yeah.
So anyways, a few years later, I meet my wife, and I started attending that Pentecostal church, and that's kind of what often happens, especially when you come out of one lifestyle that's pretty hard one way. You kind of really swing,
Totally,
and you just full blown, cold turkey, straight edge, everything.
It's very similar to people who get sober.
Yeah,
they tend to like go like hyperactive in like physical things.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
It's the two extremes that just constantly the pendulum.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how it swung for me. But I still think sometimes like, those first couple of years were probably some of the most amazing like stuff I witnessed as like a spiritual person, just to this day, just so many tangible things. But anyways, that my wife's family grew up in that church. So we eventually started dating, and we got married. And then we moved. Both of her sisters went to VCU.
Okay.
And so one of them stayed down here. And so we ended up coming down to Richmond. We wanted to just get out of that area. But the point I think I was making was like there was a time where I never thought I'd leave Amsterdam. I never thought I'd leave New York.
Wow.
It was just such like a small-minded, just kind of secure place for me. It's where I grew up, where all my friends were. And so, I kind of can see in my life now these times that just kept on expanding me, where you could shrink back and just say, nah, I want to be here or
Yeah.
take that
Yeah.
step. And the first step was to move down to Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
So I literally got married, graduated with my master's degree, started my career teaching at George Wythe High School in Richmond. And
That's a rough high school.
yeah, it was a rough inner city. Yeah, that's like 4 other podcasts.
Yeah.
We can definitely, I'll tell you.
Sweet.
Like
We'll do the Chronicles
stories.
of Brett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be another one.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna go to that high school if I wasn't if I
you're
wasn't
in that-
homeschooled.
Your father did go there, I believe.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a that's a rough high school there, but
it was like, honestly, I like a really fun experience. Like my first year, I loved it. And then 3 years later, I was kind of burnt out from just the chaos of
Totally.
it all. But so I started that, and then like my wife was pregnant within a year. So like all of this stuff, life be lifing, as one of
Totally.
my friend always says. And it just like all hit me at once, all the responsibility of a career, a marriage, new place, a new environment. And it was, honestly, I didn't really like it down here for the first couple of years. I like really wanted to move back. It was like that, when you experience sometime that stretching, you just want to shrink back.
totally.
You go right back
Absolutely.
to safety.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key thing there is safety.
Yeah. Well, it's like
people-
the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven, like you just become, it's an addiction.
I like that statement.
And sometime with, if you're familiar with like the Enneagram, I'm a 6. So that's the need for security. That's been a part of my, the unlearning that I've really had to figure out in life, because it's dictated my whole life. I've only found this out more recently.
Okay.
But that like so many of my choices have been dictated by like this like fear-based need for security.
Totally.
So anyways, so I 3 years after George Wythe, I got hired at Goochland. And that was a great place to teach, good school, great kids. I always again, it's like teaching's been great for me. It's been, I've always gotten along with my kids. It's been a successful career, but I would say around, in line with like the theme of your podcast, like the thing that first really started to change was my brother's passing.
Whoa.
Which is what I posted about, the other day.
Wow.
So have you ever seen Anthony Bourdain's show Parts Unknown?
A couple episodes.
Okay, so it can summarize what happened in my hometown, really. If you ever saw the one, I can just briefly describe it. When he was in, he used to live in Provincetown, Massachusetts.
Yep.
And, the heroin epidemic went through there. And so he does the first half of the episode where he goes to Provincetown and he kind of just goes around, talks, shares what it used to be like and all that. And then he goes to, I guess it would be the western part of Massachusetts, which is right on the border of eastern New York, where I'm from.
Whoa.
And he talks about what happened there.
Yeah.
So to really just kind of put it in perspective, like this was probably in the late 1990s, where the doctors were just prescribing opiates.
Yeah.
Just, my hand hurts, boom, boom, boom. And my brother had like a really jacked up hand. He had, I don't know, he played a lot of different sports, really good athlete, but he had broken his hand so many times that, fighting it with all this stuff, that it just kind of got really, he was always in pain with it. So that kind of was his introduction into, I need something for this pain.
Yep.
Opiates, prescribed, and they were just giving it out. And that's like, luckily again, where I was kind of on the straight and narrow by that time, but it was ravaging my hometown. But eventually the doctors are like, no, we can't do this anymore.
Right.
No opium.
Yep. That was probably around the same time that the Florida situation was happening. There's like a documentary called the Drug Inc. or something like that. I think it's called.
Okay.
And I think that's the one. I can't remember which one it was. I've watched a bunch of them, but one of them talks about how there wasn't really that many computer systems or anything like that, and so someone can go from this doctor over here and then go to the next doctor over there, and they both prescribe. Yeah, yeah.
And
then they get double dosage.
Sure, yeah.
And they're just handing them out like whatever.
People were like that I know were taking like. So we're so hooked on it, and we're taking so many pills that would kill probably the normal person. But But then all of a sudden they cut it off.
Right.
So what do? You
Go to
do heroin.
Yeah.
You know? And so that kind of is what happened to a lot of people there, and including my brother. And so in 2014 just alone was like a really just hard year just financially for us. And
Yep.
it was just one of those years that shakes you to the core. Like nothing is working out.
Yeah.
You know, the credit card bills, hospital. I think everyone in my family, and my son would be born, my third child would be born in 2015. Everyone in my family had to go for some medical procedure.
Oh my goodness.
So that like the medical bills were piling up, you know. So as a person of faith, it was just like this, what is going on, you know? And so my one of my first friends down here, he died of pancreatic cancer in late 2014. So it was just like really just like smacked with life that year. And then in early 2015, my third child was born. And I was at school one day, and me and a teacher were switching. I was watching her room, and she took a few kids to like test or something in my room, and I was just watching her class. And so she came into the room, and she had this like she's like, there's a phone call for you, and she had like this just really worried look, and it like, so I'm the longest walk of my life, you know. It's like from one side of the building to the other, and I'm like, is my wife okay? My kids, you know. That was like, and I think maybe my brother crossed my mind, because he was actually, again, he was down in Florida.
Oh wow.
He had moved down from New York to go to Florida, and he was going to a rehab down there, and so he had gone through the program, and he was out. And so I get on the phone, and it's my wife, and she's like, you know, your brother was found in his car, and you know, and he's gone, you know.
How old was he at that point?
He was 36.
God.
Yeah.
Oh.
So so it was like one of those things where it's like knocks the wind out of you. Still does.
Absolutely.
Still does. But it's okay, you know. I've learned to lean into it, because it's like the only connection you have is that grief.
Absolutely.
You know, and I like it. You know, it's okay. It's okay. It's all good. But so I went home. I drove home, and I remember, and I'm getting around to a point. Like I had this moment when I got home, and there was just, I just like let out like I don't know where my wife wasn't there at the moment. The kids weren't there, but I just like let out this like moan.
Stop.
Like it was almost like an exorcism, just like a cry. And it was almost like the, yeah.
Stop. All right, good.
It was almost like a big part of me left, you know, like I felt it, like a tangible piece of me just like ripped out. And it felt it so much. I thought, yeah, it's all good.
So you said you drove home.
Yeah. I was driving home, and it was like kind of like at that moment, just kind of processing it all. And it was like my mind was racing, but I got home, like me and my brother were really close, you know, like literally sometimes it almost seemed just called each other with nothing to say, but just to have that contact, you know? And when I got home, there was this moment, my kids, I could tell that they, you know, the expression on their face, they were young, but they could tell something was wrong. And at one point, my kids and wife, they just weren't in the room, but like I had this like, which felt like an exorcism. It was just like this, maybe that's not the right word, but just like an extraction.
Yeah.
Like, and I just was like, oh, like let out this moan, and it just felt like a part of me just left. And it was like, it was so real that I like kind of like the next couple days when I was talking to people, I was just like, can they see it? You know what I mean? It was weird, man.
That's
it was just
crazy.
like, it was just this really powerful feeling. But so, you know, you go through all the stages of grief. I chose to like really busy myself at work, because it was in February. It's February 2nd, 2015. It was Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
I talked to him that day. You know, it was just one of those things. He'd just be like, kind of like, he was a character, man. Like, just like it's hard to explain. If just center of the party, holding court, just a captive audience,
Right,
just
right.
gobble up all his bullshit. You know?
Yeah.
Just like all his crazy stories.
Right.
But like, and we would just get on the phone and be like, not really have much to say. Like, all right, peace. You know, hey, click.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the last thing. But you know, so I ended up busying myself at work. And I was like, you know, after the initial like couple of weeks, I went down to Florida, and you know, the funeral was down there and stuff. Well, the funeral with like 5 of us, because
Right.
it's like it happened so suddenly. And that was all really kind of crazy. But you know, it was like this 2 or 3 weeks of super intense pain, and then I got back to work, and it was just like busying myself.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm fine. I ended up winning like Teacher of the Year that year. But I remember that summer, you know, when you're a teacher, you got the summers off, and that's when it really hit, you know.
Because you had lots of time to focus on
just
it.
a lot of time. And I would just go out every day and just sit out in a lawn chair in the front yard and just cry, you know. And it was it just led to this like complete bitterness, you know? Yeah, it was just like, you know, I still kind of believed in God, but I thought it was like more like a deist. He's just up there,
Yes,
you know, they're not really involved in people's lives, or he's, you know, he doesn't listen to me, you know, or answer my prayers, or so I just had this like really just dark cloud over me for a while, you know. I would probably say like 1.5 years, 2 years, where it's just like I had to, you know, I still went to church just because my family went, but I would have to walk out of services and,
right,
you know, just hear like testimonies and be like, screw this,
yeah,
man. Like
you're pissed off.
Yeah, like you know, and that's weird when, you know, you see that stuff.
Totally.
You know, like, man, God spared me when the person right next to you, you know, when like a shooting or, you know what I mean, like, and that person's dead, and you like, how do you process that stuff, you know? And that's sometimes how I feel about it. It's like, what is he just choosing, or you know, whatever, at least at the time. And so like, it was this complete undoing of everything I thought I knew, believed, you know, and kind of led to this like deism, I guess you could say, for a couple of years. But I finally, I mean, it's hard, you know, it's how I got out of that's like kind of too long of a story, I guess. But I kind of just had this like this moment where it's just like this breakdown of just like, this is the way it is. This is the way I feel. I just, you know, I don't ever feel like in terms of spirituality and stuff, I feel so abandoned. And it was kind of just coming to face with that, where I kind of just maybe ignored it for a while. But it was just that moment of realness kind of led to this awakening, this kind of reawakening, where I started to just see it all differently. I started to stop seeing like God up in the sky, you know, like this kind of God up in the sky versus the God that was in you crying with you. You know what I mean? And you have this like realization that the kingdom is within, and it's not separate from you. It's not an entity that's like in control of everything up in the sky. He works through people. He works in you, and he weeps in you. And at least that's the way I was seeing it then. And so it kind of led to this really big healing and kind of this whole renovation of my faith, the way I saw God, the way I saw Christianity, and you know, but it's like we never stay in the same place for too long, you know?
Oh yeah.
Especially when it comes to spirituality, I feel like that like everything in nature is constantly evolving. I don't think spirituality is any different.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, you learn something or you unlearn something probably, and then you have to like reassess everything.
Totally, because everything's connected to everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so everything gets like renovated, unlearned, relooked at, and then, you know, you go maybe a few months, maybe a few years, and then it happens again.
Yeah.
And so it's, for me, since all of like, I would say 2015, there's been not addition but subtraction.
Interesting.
All of these things that I thought I believed in, there's just all of these things that have kind of just kind of like, it's just become such like a mystery to me that like I feel like sometimes the talk of this is the way it is, it's this or that, or
Right.
it's this. I just like write it right off. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just too much of a mystery. And, you know, I don't think it's like a mystery in the regard that it's like this ethereal nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a mystery that we can trust in and have faith in and even have fellowship with, if that makes sense. But anyways, so that kind of was a big part of my faith journey. But like I really are probably around like the pandemic year, which I guess was 2019 and 2020. That's when I really started just kind of like I was really into The Alchemist. I don't know if you've read that book.
Not yet.
You got to read it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a novel. It's very popular novel, but
I know the name of it. But
it's got so many like spiritual truths woven into it. And it's really about this whole idea of fulfilling your personal legend.
Okay.
You know, and going on this journey, the hero's journey that, you know, other people would call it, or the vision quest that Native Americans call it. And so it kind of really was a theme that resonated with me because I was like, again, like I felt like at that point I've been teaching the same stuff for over 10 years. I could do it with my eyes closed. You know, it was just such a becoming like a monotonous, the years blending together, and just like I felt like I needed to pursue these things that were inside of me. And I never had that when I was a teacher, because I've you know, since I started having kids, I've worked 2 or 3 jobs just, you know, because I've you know, primarily been the sole provider. My wife's done things from time to time, but you know, I always had to do multiple things. So I just got to this place where I was just felt really tired and burnout, and it's like, you know, that crisis point, you know, what do you want to pass down to your kids? Safety, you know, like safety, and just, you know, you got to have all this stuff lined up, and you might not like it, but just bear it down, or no, like take a risk, you know, like what I was kind of really starting to think, what was I going to pass down to them, and what did I want them to, know about life. And, you know, and I've like a big part of, I felt like me being able to make that decision was ice exposure, like the cold exposure.
Okay, cold plunge.
Yeah, cold plunge. Yeah, I started. I did that mainly because of like physical stuff I was dealing with, but it really regulated my nervous system.
Interesting.
Because I used to like have a really unregulated nerve. I didn't know nothing about that stuff, you know, but.
Did that cause like anxiety, like, and all that kind of thing, or what do you mean by?
Yeah, it's like anxiety, but not in the sense like
socially.
Yeah, not. I mean, it's hard to explain. Just kind of always, I guess, like reacting and just like tense, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Like always very tense, and certain things like very triggering, and anger. You know, a lot of just like kind of always feeling like the rubber band's about to snap. And that was kind of like my whole life, like with a lot of, like just, you know, a lot of triggers with sports, and, you know, like watching my kids play just the way I was raised, and like reliving a lot of stuff that, I felt was kind of like running me, like kind of overbearing, you know, just reacting all the time to stuff. But, I had talked about leaving teaching for like years, and, I just always, whenever the contract came out to sign it, I would have that fear, you know, like the nervous system go flying. What are you going to do? How are you going to make a living? You know, what about your pension? All this stuff. And then I would just like sign it at the last minute and go in for another year, you know?
Wow.
So, basically, once I started doing the cold exposure for physical stuff that I was dealing with, I was just like a lot of inflammation and stuff, and nothing was helping. That started helping with the physical, but then all of a sudden I started noticing a difference, like with my nervous system. Like I just didn't care in a good way. You know, it's just like, you know, like, wow, I'm coaching this activity at school, and that's getting close, but no reaction, you know, or I'm watching my kids. It's like the first year I coached my son in sports, you know, which was like a big victory for me because I used to get really triggered by it all. And because I was raised by a football coach,
Okay.
and so I've coached him that year for the first time, and it was great. So that kind of like led to that. When my decision, when it came out, I just felt like I have to be true to myself, like damn everything else. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know if it's going to work out, but if I don't try, it's worse. It's like that. It's going to be worse if I just stay and don't know.
That's my like life motto.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
For real.
I did that. That was all of my 20s. Yeah, with businesses and things. I was like, I gotta try this.
Yeah,
I gotta try that because I've got to go after that. Got to go after this.
Yeah.
And then it's got me into a lot of debt, but it's
Sure.
not because I did it wrong because I was young and immature. And,
Yeah.
and then also enough of an adult that my parents didn't. They stood hands off.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay,
Yeah.
you're an adult.
Sure.
We'll be here if you need like some guidance.
Yeah.
It's what we can give you with things like that. But I hate regret.
Sure. Yeah.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Like it is the worst. And it's probably because I don't know which Enneagram I am, but whichever one it is that is avoid pain.
Okay.
And so
I'm not completely.
So I think it's either 7 or 9. I can't remember which one it is.
Okay.
But I avoid pain at all costs.
Yeah.
And so if I know that me not doing something is going to cause regret and cause that pain, I'm going after it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out as I go along.
Sure. Right.
And so that's that has been like my life motto. And like I got some decisions this year I'm making that's freaking me out. And so I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I remember Brett decided to just jump in a car and go across country. Let me talk to him because I have something very similar coming up. Possibly this year. So
it's interesting. It's so interesting though, because it's like I started reading, maybe not reading so much, but following certain poets.
Okay.
And poets have like the ability to really capture these deep truths that are hard to explain, hard to like put words in. And there's a poet, I think his name's David White. I might be mistaken, but he's like, how do you know you're on the right path? It disappears.
Oh, great.
And so,
great.
And so, I think we look at it the other way.
Yeah.
We're like, I want everything laid out. I want to know exactly what it looks like. I want it to minimize all risk. And,
totally.
And, it's like, and that's not really in my experience the way it is,
Yeah.
Or if you know what the path is, you're probably on someone else's. I've heard that one as well too.
I like that too. Yeah. Because that's how physically our brain is, where our brain is to receive information and predict the future.
Yeah.
But if we are a spiritual being in a physical experience, then we got to live from one or the other.
Yeah.
And so if we're living from that ethereal realm, just going through a human experience, then it's going to be the opposite than what our brain's trying to predict for us.
Sure. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's how I see it. Yeah.
Well, there's so much in the quantum. There's just so much potential.
Totally.
And it's like, and I do think that ultimately there's different timelines and different paths that can get back to the same place.
Yep.
But like, I don't think anybody is going to follow their highest timeline. I just don't, it's not, it's just part of the process, and like, it's like, why didn't, just from like a biblical standpoint, it's like Moses's quickest way to go into the promised land was right through Canaan.
Right.
And it's like, no, he's commanded to go for like the complete opposite direction, because if he faced the first thing in Canaan, he would have went back to Egypt.
Right.
And so you got to like kind of, get your character forged, and when you're kind of actually ready to be ready for whatever it is ultimately that which again, I don't think anything is just like this one thing that you're supposed to do, or
right.
I think it might be for a little while, and then it's just because we're just constantly in motion and evolving and growing, and I just think that's like the human experience, at least the way it's intended to be. But so I took that leap. And it was the hardest decision I've ever made, just with leaving, and it was one of those things that I made the decision a little bit late. It was just like, so I was unprepared for, what exactly would happen afterwards. We had a few different options on the table. And we the first thing I did was get my book published. Like that, I had finished that like a year prior, so.
Spoken Logos. Where can you get it?
Amazon.
Amazon.com. Spoken Logos.
So that was like, I had finished that like a year before. And like, again, like all of these limiting beliefs you have, like these demons, these demons that you face, like that was done. And it was like, yeah, but I don't like, you don't know how to publish it, or you can't publish it, or no one's going to buy it, or it's like you've moved on from a lot of that stuff that you wrote in that. So you can't, you know what I mean? All these doubts that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally was like, if I had stayed teaching, I never would have got that done.
The book.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just taking that step away, and that I mainly worked on it on July and August. And I just like, it was tedious, boring, a lot of, cause I already had it written. It was just like learning what to do with Amazon and get your ISBN number.
Gotcha.
And cause I self-published.
Oh, okay.
Learning all of that stuff was very tedious, but I was very happy to get that done. It was like if nothing, because that's Rick Rubin. I really like him.
He's amazing.
Talks about in the Creative Act. He says you make it as a devotion to yourself and God, not for nothing else.
Yep.
And I'm very proud of that. And I don't care what happens with it. To be honest, I just am happy that I was able to do that. But we got to the point where it was just like, okay. We had this conversation, like we're kind of at a crossroads, and
you and your wife.
Yeah. What my wife and I talking, we're kind of at a crossroads. I can probably go back into something, or I can definitely go back into something, and we can just kind of maintain. And we just we're like, looked at each other and we're like, it's not what you left for, so.
That's a damn good wife right there.
Yeah, right. I mean, she's been
holding you to your standards.
Yeah. Well, she's been supportive since day one of a lot of because she's a very deep person too that wants to follow these inner leadings. Yeah. And you have them, and they're there, and you can't shake them. They'll always be there. And if you can ignore them, but they're gonna just. You can quiet them, but they're never going anywhere. They're just going to bug the shit out of you until, so
that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Is my whole 20s, my whole life, I've always wanted to be in entertainment.
Okay.
My entire life.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. You used to do the theater. And stuff. Yeah. Okay.
And always wanted to be in entertainment. And then love the behind the scenes of movies and everything that has to do with entertainment. And, home videos you'll be able to see, like my brother would be making he would be making some kind of crazy story, a normal story, whatever, and I'll be in the background making faces and all sorts. I was always the entertainer, and it's just been my whole life, whatever. But that once you became an adult, your logic brain kicks in.
Yeah.
And so that was my whole 20s, was avoiding the going with the logical path. Each time. To avoid going into what I actually truly wanted to be, which is an entertainment.
Yeah. Okay.
And so,
okay. Wow.
And
interesting.
Then last year, I just like, all right, I have no nose left. I've got to go after it. And so I just started, and I was like, all right, what's the easiest? It's easiest for self-producing. And I was like, I love listening to podcasts. I love talking to people.
Yeah, sure.
And then as soon as I said that, I was like, all right, what's the topic? And then I was like, boom, 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 boom. Life, song,
creative.
and death.
I like it. Yeah.
And so those are my three most interesting, fascinating things that I love.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And then the logic brain kicked in again for like 9 months.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Sure.
I can't hold it off. And so I was like, all right, I'm a goal without a plan is a dream.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's like, I got to make a plan.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm going to do X amount every month. Come hell or high water.
Sure, yeah.
I don't care who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck what's happening.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be talking to anybody. I'll talk to a homeless person, to the president of the United States, because I've got to do my plan. And so
yeah.
And so
no, that's awesome, man.
And it's exactly what Rick Rubin said. It's like,
Yeah.
don't look at the results.
Yeah.
Do it for the creativeness of it.
Yeah.
And then that next episode is just going to give you to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll give you to the next one.
Yep.
And so the past 2 years, I've started the year off with, I like to try to do a book a month minimum. And so last 2 years, I've started it with The Creative Act.
Yeah. Phenomenal book.
And I haven't put enough fire on my ass to actually go after it until this year. So I was like, and ironically, I haven't got to the Creative Act yet.
Okay. Yeah. It's solid.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah.
And so next month, I think is going to be the Creative Act.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it's, I was going to say, man, it's like, he talks about just that act of devotion. What can often happen is, like when you're making it and it's coming from you,
Yes.
your energetic blueprint transfers to the product, to the art, whatever it is, you know, and I thought that was just a beautiful way of, it's like you're trapped in it, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, like the final piece. But he said most art nowadays is people trying to make what other people like or want.
Totally.
And I mean, if you think about it, if you think about just the way that social media functions, it tries to pull you in that direction.
Yes.
Like, how do I get the likes? You have to do this, and you know, and it's like, it's programming you, you know, to try to get a result. So anyways, that's probably why there's so much BS out there.
Yeah.
But,
but ironically, the number one YouTuber right now started by counting to 1 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was one of his first Mr. Beast. One of his first episodes that he ever did was just videoing him when he was a kid, and he's tried to count to 1 million.
Oh, wow.
And if he messed up, he started over again.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
that's wild.
That one's still on his channel.
Yeah.
And now he's got live competitions on Amazon Prime and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Just because he put his own blueprint on it.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's because nobody can be you.
Yep.
You know, you can, I mean, a lot of people can do, and you know, and this is, I'm still in process with all this. Like a lot of, like, I feel like I'm finding my own, like this right here. I like this. I like the format. It's just chill. You know, you're not trying to squeeze it into a reel or something. It's just, you're, you know, it's you just sharing, you know, and I really like that format, but, I think that there's something like no one else can be you. You know, you can all make similar stuff, but if it's truly a part of you, that's like, you know, for like you said, come hell or high water.
Yep.
It is what it is.
Yep.
But yeah, so we were kind of in that place of just like, you know, like it was a long time coming. This wasn't just we made that decision once I left teaching. It was like a solid at least 5-year thing. You know, at least just where's this constant like, you know, what are we going to do in life? Is this it? You know, we know there's other stuff. So anyways, one of the things that we had talked about was doing this 1,000-mile journey.
Yep.
And so the quote is, the quote is, what's his name? Lao Tzu, I believe. Yeah, I believe it's him. It's a 1,000-mile journey starts with one step.
Oh yes, yeah.
You know, and like that's the most important step because every other step is in that first step.
Right.
So if you don't have that first step, then you know that's where everything gets aborted.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like it's not the last drink that got you drunk; it's the first one.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we were on the back porch at my house, and we're no longer at that house, which is another we eventually sold our home, but that was the toughest decision. But we were on the back porch and we were talking about going on this trip, and we're like, yeah, well, you know, we'll just document it. We'll call it a 1,000-mile journey. And so at that point, my son comes outside. He was doing like some like homeschool thing online.
Yeah.
And he calls me up, and he never calls me towards his stuff. And he's like, yeah, can you help me with this? I don't understand it, whatever. At the time, well, now he's 14. At the time he was, let's see.
9 or 10.
Yeah. Geez, I'm terrible with time, man. He must've been like 12, maybe like 12 or I think 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think he was 12. But he's like, yeah, and I come and I'm watching the video, and it's a woman talking, and she says, she's describing the instructions, and she goes, after all, 1,000-mile journey starts with one step. This is like after we were named on the porch. And it's just one of those synchronicities, you know, which I don't know how I completely feel about all the time, but sometimes they're, you know, it's just interesting to see. But, So you know, it was kind of one of those things where like, all right, we're gonna do this. You know, we're gonna sell our home, and it's gonna be that hero's journey. You know, because again, the whole idea of the vision quest is just to enact transformation. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Just somehow they used to like you go out into the wilderness. You're kind of don't know what your specific role is in the tribe or
Right.
the human community, but you go out into the wilderness, you face your demons, you transform, and then you come back with good medicine for the people. You know, and that's kind of
Interesting.
their idea of it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But that it's the like, you know, fulfilling your personal legend or the hero's journey, like Joseph Campbell talks about. So we just decided that it was something that we always wanted to do. We love to travel. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've been abroad a lot, but this was like something that we wanted to do with our family. So, um,
How do the kids feel about it?
uh, oldest or start with youngest, most optimistic, middle, oldest,
Yeah.
no way.
Really?
Yeah. So it was like
What? So your oldest was your son that
my
you just?
daughter,
Oh,
my
okay.
daughter. Yeah. And
At that point, how old was she?
she must have been, I don't know. Let's see, maybe 14.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
totally.
trying to figure out the ages.
That's a
But yeah,
formative time for her.
yeah, and it was just one of those things where, like, and honestly, there were things like I just felt it would be good for everybody. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna again, just like you know, you live in a big house, everyone's in their own room, and
Yep.
there's kind of like this lack of cohesion, and so we sold our house early November, and we were at my in-laws for a little bit, like a week or so. Then we got in our had our RV, we bought it, had it dropped off at Powhatan State Park,
Yeah.
stayed in it for 2 weeks there, and the day after Thanksgiving we took off.
Wow.
And I never had driven an RV before, so I never drove a diesel, never drove a Ram dually.
Yeah.
Never drove an RV. So now I'm driving a Ram dually
Yeah.
diesel, 41 foot rig, 13.6 feet high or feet high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Freaking house on wheels.
Oh yeah.
And I've never done it in my life.
That's crazy.
Never even pulled. Like, I mean, I drove like a moving truck, you
Right.
know, but so we it's just one of those things like,
But the largest moving truck is only 26 feet.
yeah,
so,
yeah,
so
right.
it's double that.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
this is one of those things where it's like, I just have to learn how to do it. You know, I was
Absolutely.
like watch videos and stuff, but I didn't do any practicing.
Yeah.
And so like what I started off there was just like at Powhatan, just kind of because you have to drive down the road to get to like the dump station, and then you know what I
Okay,
mean. So
yeah.
it started off like that, but then we went to Hungry Mother in Western Virginia,
Uh-huh.
and then we kind of just made our way from like North Carolina to Tennessee to Georgia to Alabama to New Orleans and down to Texas, and then so we made our way down to Houston, Texas,
Uh-huh.
and we stayed in Houston for a month. And then from Houston, we went out further, and we went to Austin, Texas, and then
How you like Austin?
nice.
Yeah.
My favorite, probably what I liked best that I saw in Texas.
Really?
Yeah, I liked it. It was a cool city.
That's the place where I plan on moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we stayed in McKinney Falls State Park, which
Uh-huh.
was right outside Austin, and we went into Austin, I think, a time or two, but it's got a cool feel to it. Yeah, it was nice where we were. I can't remember the street, but it was like a lot going on. But then we went out to New Mexico and, you know, started doing a lot of national parks and Arizona, Utah. And then we had a plan to go to California, but at that point, the price was just like crazy out there. Like the diesel's like $7-8 a gallon.
Oh yeah.
It was just like, this is going to just be too much. So
Yeah.
from Utah, we started heading back, and we hit up, you know, some of the cool cities on the way back, like Santa Fe, New
Yeah.
Mexico, and Oklahoma City. We kind of liked Little Rock, Arkansas, Nashville, Tennessee, and you know, we ended up.
So at
coming
this
back.
point, you're already way over 1,000 miles, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but we said we did like we homeschooled our kids in the RV.
Cool.
We saw several national parks, did a lot of hiking, but we just bonded, man. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things
Yeah.
where it's just like the good, the bad, and the ugly RVing, because it is freaking ugly at times.
oh yeah.
Black tank ugly at times. You know what I mean?
can
Which is
imagine.
like, well, some people get that. But,
Yeah, yeah. So at this point, by the time you've got to Utah, how did your daughter's perspective change, I guess,
um
from when she was like, I don't
Well,
want to at all?
yeah. So I think at that point had already we decided, I think around either when we were going from New Mexico to Arizona, we had decided that we were going to cut it short
Mhm.
and start heading back. And so we were telling her that we were basically, once we get out to Utah, we're gonna. And so it was kind of like they really liked Houston because we were in one place,
Oh, okay.
and
Right.
and our family, my wife's family lives there, and
Oh,
so.
cool. Okay.
And so we got to see a lot of people there, and that was cool. But I think at that point, like my boys wanted to go to California and they wanted to do all that at that point, where my daughter was just happy to start heading back home. But yeah, so we got all the way back, and we went. We didn't go. We got into Powhatan, but then we immediately went down to the Eastern Shore and spent 3 weeks at the beach.
Wow.
So, and that was, going through those two tunnels was interesting.
I
To
can
get down to the
imagine.
Eastern Shore, the Hampton
Yeah.
Bay Bridge Tunnel, and then Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel.
Yeah.
Which, with the rig, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like that,
Yeah.
like inches, a game of inches. But
I am terrified in that in a car.
yeah.
Which is crazy.
So, but yeah, man. So that's like kind of that was the RV trip, but it really just, for me personally, like I said, wasn't all glamorous for sure. I'm not gonna say
Totally.
because a lot of people are like, oh, number one response I get, oh, I always wanted to do that,
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of one of those things. Like I did it, like you should go if you really wanted. Like I think that those things, for better or for worse, man, you feel those callings, those urgings to do it.
Yep.
And you don't know what the result's going to be. It might, might cost a lot, but I don't know. It's just the way the way I'm going to live my life is just, try stuff and, try to experience things and try to, really grow. I feel like what I was saying with that was like, I felt like I just taking something that I felt completely unqualified to do
Mm-hmm.
and did it. And
Yep.
learned how to do it like quickly, and like every RV park I went to, people were like, that's our RV people are the coolest people, super nice, always want to help, always, just, it's like a community.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I learned that from the movie We Are the Millers.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. I remember that. But it's really like this like community, and you meet like the coolest people, but they're always coming out and checking your RV and checking the truck. And we were like the weird people that had a cat and a dove that you could always hear the dove cooing out the window, and they're like looking all around. But
Wait.
Yeah.
You had a dove?
yeah, we brought our cat and we had a dove.
How did you get a dove?
We already had it. Yeah, we had the dove at our house, so we just kept it in a cage in my daughter's room.
But how the hell do you get do pet stores sell doves?
No, we got it from a friend that had one, and it had babies.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to figure out. I have to look that up.
Ringneck dove, but they coo all the time,
Yeah.
so it's very soothing. It's
Right.
such like this, it's
Yeah.
but people would walk past the RV and they'd like look all around, and then and our cat was like, at the time when he lived in Goochland, was like eating like whatever we fed him, and then he'd go and eat at the neighbor's house. So he's
Right.
like freaking 30 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Looked like a tiger.
Yeah.
And so but you learn from these people, and but everybody was like, oh, what's, how many this and that, or this gadget and this. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, this is my first time ever doing. They're like, holy shit, you drag that thing, But it was like just one of those things that like I always was afraid to try new stuff. It's like, again, that familiarity and that safety really kept me from ever thinking that, not only not trying, but not thinking I was capable.
Okay.
And so and so that really shook my mind to where like I'm not afraid to try anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I've since then tried different jobs, and like haven't always worked out, but it's just like, oh, whatever, I'm just along for the ride at this point. And I'm like doing life coaching training, almost done with that. That's coming to an end in a couple months. But yeah, just trying to, there's deeper things that I'm working on that I'm, just in process right now. But that's kind of how the last several years have gone, you
Yeah.
know. But one of the things that came to mind when you were talking about that's what I did in my 20s, and then the logic came in. I think like Picasso said something like Pablo Picasso said the first several years of our life we try to learn how to become an adult,
Yeah.
and then when we become an adult we try to learn how to become a child again.
Oh,
And
definitely.
kind of go back to that, undoing, stripping away all of the logic and just try to really live from heart again, you know, just in the moment, spontaneous. You know, not saying that like, again, like like you were saying, man, if you don't have that plan, nothing's going to happen. You
Right.
know what I mean? And it's like a kind of like that tension of the chaos with the order,
Totally.
you know, and that's, we got to walk with one foot in both,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. Yeah. It's very interesting because, like, I guess that's chaos and order is like I guess like the perfect title of existence because, like, yeah.
That's the theme of the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why it's like kind of like the yin and yang
Yeah.
colors. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
To be honest with you, my mom
Yeah.
gave it to me like a couple of years back, and
Yeah, that's all good,
and
man.
then I was like, at that point, I when she gave it to me, I was at the point of where you were just being like, I'm just like agnostic towards anything.
Yeah,
anything.
no, I totally.
And so I was like, I have it in my possession now. Eventually, I'll
Yeah.
get to it when I'll get back around to
Yeah.
it. And so,
No,
but
I'll
now-
go through months of just like, I'm not reading anything. I'm just, no. You
Yeah.
know, it's because, you know, it's you just ride, like, I just kind of ride the wave with stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I have that momentum and I'm enjoying what I'm reading and I'm getting stuff out of it, or
yep.
not. And so I'm not, you know, I'm just kind of whatever.
Yeah. Because I was like, because all I've ever known from you was definitely nothing. I knew nothing
Yeah.
of what I thought I knew about you.
Yeah.
Because like
yeah.
when we met, you were going through that issues with your brother and all that. And
Yeah,
so it was like,
yeah.
I thought you were this solid dude and not having any
Oh,
hardship
yeah.
in your life. And,
Oh, geez.
and in the
yeah.
reality of it, you were actually not at all.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so when my mom gave me your book, and I was like, oh, I don't want that Christian book.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
right now in the,
yeah.
if there's a God out there, he's cool and I'm good
Yeah,
here. And
sure.
I'm just going to keep rolling. And then once I get back around to searching and thinking about spirituality and
Yeah.
everything that has to do with it,
Yeah.
I'll read that book. And
Well,
then,
yeah.
then now talking to you. And then also what my mom was like, she's like, it's nothing with Christianity and it's nothing with that. And
Yeah. I mean,
And so-
it's kind of like for me, like I said, that was one of my big things with even publishing it, is because I've been changing so quickly,
Yeah.
and seeing things differently, and kind of evolving in my own thoughts. And so it's like, you know, for the primary goal of that, I was just like wanted to try to just like make really short readings of a lot of deep kind of like theological principles, and just simplify them, where you don't have this schizophrenic God that's hates some people, loves other people.
Got it.
And it's kind of like a synthesizing of a lot of stuff that the early church fathers believe, which is actually really grace filled. It's all
Right.
grace filled. It's the whole book is like grace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's it. It's everything's grace, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I don't know. I just see things like pretty different right now. You
Mhm.
know, in terms of just life and our role in it and God's role in it. And so it's just always interesting. It's just always changing, you know?
Yeah. With okay, so with the death of your brother, how did that did it change your perspective on life in general? Did it did it cause like your thought pattern to go off a completely different rail, minus like the bitterness and everything that
Yeah.
you were saying?
Yeah.
Did it cause you to be more introspective or anything like that?
You know, I feel like with that topic, like the whole topic of death, right? So
Yeah.
I think like even again, like I think when I first came to like a Christian faith, like
Uh-huh.
I didn't believe I didn't deep down believe a lot of the stuff that I was being told.
Okay, such
and,
as?
and I wouldn't say it out loud, the
Okay.
afterlife.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like heaven and hell. Like
Sure.
even if like say that there is, right? Like it's just not, it doesn't fit compartmentalize in my head. Like it's just this like understandable thing that it's going to be, you know,
Yeah.
it's not at all metaphorical. It's just going to be like floating on clouds versus burning in, you know,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
That just never like resonated in my mind.
Still?
Well, let me. So I think, yeah, I think there's still so much mystery to it, but I think the whole point with death is that it's not opposite of life. It's not like the opposite of life. It's one seamless act.
Got it.
You know, so it's the two sides of the same coin. So
okay.
Yeah. So the way I see it is like, I heard that people who work on hospice, that they describe those like person after person after person that they you know they have to be with on hospice when they die.
Right.
Within those last seconds, there's like this awareness. There's like this
from the patient.
Okay. Like this just complete nothing mattered that I thought did, like my work or you know, or like sometimes repentance, sometimes like just like regret, like this kind of moment of clarity, that a lot of this stuff didn't matter. And that's when it kind of dawned on me that it's almost like, to me, it's like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. There's like a metamorphosis, a complete ego death in that moment.
Okay.
That as you move into the another density, it's just like a transformation.
Got it. Okay.
Now, having said that, like I don't think it's just like, I don't think you just stop choosing, you know, like I
afterwards.
I still think that like there's, I don't know, man.
Let's get weird.
Let's
get weird.
Like, yeah. I just think that, yeah, like okay, let me make a metaphor. Okay. Sitting around a fire. Yeah. I was like sitting out back one day and I'm like, this inferno, this just like power, energy, this, you know, and I'm watching it and you know, you throw a leaf in there and it's just, becomes one. It's flame. It's all flame, you know?
Yeah.
You throw a very wet, dense, waterlogged piece of wood in there.
Yeah.
And it just smolders and it resists and it resists and it resists and it resists and you know, eventually it's going to be consumed.
Yep.
It's going to become the flame eventually.
Okay.
And I think that's the way I kind of look at the afterlife. It's like, it's kind of like, where are you at in your learning, you know, in terms of the simulation or that we call life? Like, where are you in your learning? We're going to the fire. It's a purifying fire. It's a good fire. Ultimately, are you going to resist it and hold on to whatever types of bitterness you might have had or unforgiveness, and you want to resist it, which I don't know how long you could possibly do that for, or do you just become one with the flame? You just, you know, burn with it and flow with it, so to speak. But you know, I don't know. I don't necessarily just, man, this is I've gotten weird with this stuff.
I like it.
But to me, that it's pretty evident that there's reincarnation in the Bible.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
talk to me about that.
Well, they just said to Jesus, like, he's like, who do you say that I am? Yeah. John the Baptist, Elijah come back, one of the prophets. You know, it was in their belief system, at least, if not nothing else.
I've never ever heard it that way before. And what the hell?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't like, I think that it wouldn't be past the realm of possibility that, like, if you haven't
done your thing,
if you haven't worked out all of your karma and all that stuff, that you could very easily have to go through it all again. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's I've the past 10 years has really changed me, like, and in really like the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Where I really just was like, fuck Christianity.
Yeah.
I am not dealing with it anymore.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just not dealing with any religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I'm just gonna live how I want, where I want, whatever I want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do.
Hmm.
Be smart in in those movements, but I think all religions are just humans trying to figure
Figured
this
out. Yeah.
chaos out.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've dived deep into lots of different viewpoints,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
in my whole life I've always thought like if I was born on the other side of the world I wouldn't have been a Christian. I would have
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
wherever I was
Right.
born
Right.
in that upbringing.
Sure. Yeah.
But like backing up, it's like I just want to know truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Hmm.
Whatever truth is, if it's Christianity, if it's Buddhism, is it
Yeah.
reincarnation, is it
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. But so yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's I've never even thought about that when I heard that phrase in the
Yeah.
Bible before,
Yeah.
but that does make sense because he wouldn't have said it if it wasn't in their mindset already.
Yeah, it must have been in their mindset at the very least,
Totally.
right? And then there's
Which is so crazy.
yeah, well
There's it's crazy. That's blowing my mind right now.
there's thoughts that like he went to like in India they believe that he would like they believe Jesus was there, like he spent time there.
Okay, tell me about that.
I don't know much about it. If there's one of my favorite teachers, his name is oh my god, Paramahansa Yogananda.
Okay.
And like him and his guru were like Hindu that learned a ton about Christianity.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to the guru eventually knew that Yogananda was going to move to the West and teach Kriya yoga in the West, but
Right.
knew that he needed to understand Jesus
And understand the Western mentality.
mindset. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you read his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and I'm like, this dude knows. If anybody knows Jesus, this guy does. I mean, like the way he describes him and his encounters with him, and it's like it's just it's beautiful,
right?
And you're like, man, this dude, like it's kind of like, and you start looking at these parables different. It's like, Lord, like when did we feed you and clothe you when you did it to my least? Like people who didn't ever know that they were doing something for Jesus.
Right.
Not Yogananda, because he was very intentional with his relationship with Jesus and stuff. But I feel like the whole point I'm making is like I think like again, like you're saying, the dogma that we think you believe, like this is the way you do it. You believe this dogma, you get this result, and you make it to this place, and everybody else is hellfodder. And it's just bullshit.
Yeah, it's total.
And it's just like, I almost think in a lot of ways it's like offensive to the work of Christ.
Yeah.
Like if you so he didn't really accomplish much except a couple of chosen people. Like that's all he did. Like
right.
But again, the early church fathers believe that he reconciled everything. Mm-hmm. And that was the early, like the closest connection to the biblical gospel narrative, was that everything had been taken care of and reconciled.
And that it was at that point I truly started to believe that about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I said, no matter what I do.
Yeah.
No matter nothing I do is wrong.
Yeah.
Is it life producing? Or if it's not.
Yeah.
If it's not life producing, I'm in the wrong vein.
Yeah.
I need to switch over to something that's life producing.
Sure.
So keep that knower within me.
Yeah.
Let that be my barometer.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't screw people over, because that's not love.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that's not love. You're not love the creator, God, whatever you want to call it, the source energy. Prime mover. I learned that one from a couple podcasts ago.
Prime mover?
Prime mover.
I don't think I've heard that one.
I haven't either. Apparently it's in a Rush song, but that was a couple episodes that'll come out next week or this week actually. But whatever you want to call it, love that.
Yeah.
Love others, and then everything else is taken care of. I was like, all right, got it. Yeah. I'm good to go no matter what I do. Love everything and love existence.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's my fuel every day. And so it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah, it's almost like it's so simple you miss it.
Bingo.
But it's so in the Bible. It's just so right there, like the simplicity of it all.
Yeah.
And you just, again, it's like, it kind of just gets clouded out with all these rules and it's like a New Testament law.
Yeah.
It just becomes like a New Testament law. This is like Paul writing to first century churches that with specific stuff that they were doing. And we've kind of made like, as far as some churches have taken that stuff.
Totally.
But
And I think that's a big egotistical thing too. Because they're like, hey, you have to hold yourself accountable to these rules.
Yeah.
And that just feeds in this human ego.
Yeah,
so
right.
I can I can do it myself.
Yeah,
I'm
religion,
holding
man.
myself to not drinking alcohol because it's whatever.
Yeah.
Jesus made alcohol.
Yeah.
Not premarital sex or whatever you wanted to say.
Yeah.
I'm the good guy here. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, actually,
Actually,
it's not what
it's
any
like.
of that is.
It's I think Richard Rohr, one of my favorite quotes he says is the safest place to hide from God is religion.
Yeah.
And, I think you can, everybody, man, you just hides from facing that subconscious, that, that program and stuff. And they just hide it under religious stuff, no matter what brand it is, whether it's legalism or Pentecostalism or charismatic stuff, or it's just all ego shit.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, it's like, I think for me, that's what it's kind of become. It's like the religion part of it is, and even the text is just simply become the finger pointing to the moon. It's not the moon.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, like you were talking about, you start to just learn things through resonance, like truth through resonance and frequency. It's not like, okay, I need to like compare this to what it said. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's like you have the knower in you.
Yep.
The kingdom is within. Everyone has the spirit.
Yep.
And it's like, and you start learning things through frequency, which that changes everything. You know what I mean? And again, it's like that unraveling. Okay, if the kingdom is within and everyone has the kingdom, then that doesn't mean that a group of people has truth cornered.
Right.
So then you start opening up to other stuff and what other, you know what I mean? And you're like, okay, some of it is like, it just doesn't. And then they're like, I know what they're saying. I know that's truth, and you just start recognizing it and you can like, it's just been like, that's kind of been where a lot of my growth has taken me. But yeah, like in terms of the afterlife. So I was just going to share, I wanted to make sure I shared this. This was like a really beautiful thing. I don't remember when exactly this was, but I had a dream. I dream a lot, very vividly. I haven't been as much lately, minus the one before I came here, about when I was coming here. But a lot of stuff comes to pass that I dream in a very convoluted way. Like where I dream it, you would never be able to like foresee what exactly and how it's exactly going to go down, but then it goes down and you're like, oh, I see all the scattered pieces because I just ultimately think, I don't think like necessarily God's just, is it this or that? Yes. I don't think God's just planting something in your mind. I just think you're entering that timelessness.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you're entering that other dimension when you're in those states, whether alive or awake or sleeping, and you just zoom out of the present into those eternal moments. But anyway, so I had this dream and I was there was this huge mansion, and just think of that verse where he says, my Father has prepared for you many mansions or whatever. It's just that came to mind in the dream. It was this giant mansion, and there was like if you were in line for like a roller coaster and it's snaking back and forth.
Okay,
and so you're kind of passing the same people.
Yep.
And so it's snaking back and forth, and I like all of the peoples that were ahead of me, their faces were passing me, and it was like going really quickly. And then all of a sudden it just like the dream just like slowed down. And my brother was ahead of me going into the mansion. And he just looked at me and he smiled and he like nodded his head.
What's up?
And there was just not one doubt since then that he's not okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And like I said, I actually tend to be one of those like crazy believers that think that Jesus actually accomplished what he set out to do.
Yeah.
And I don't look at it like, again, this is the way it happens. Like I said, I do start to think, I wonder, man, it's like, I wonder if, you know, there is lessons that need to be learned on this plane. And if they're not, they need to be learned on this plane.
Totally.
And that's open to interpretation. I just don't know. And I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's more recently I've kind of just kept it all very simply because you can get weird. You can go down a lot of rabbit trails that lead you nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, and I have.
Yeah.
So more than I can go.
And they're just fun.
They're
think
completely
about.
fun. They're
yeah,
awesome.
Fun to think about too. It's
and then
like,
you're just kind of like, just have this like weird thing that's, I don't know. It doesn't. It kind of. It was a fun journey, but then it just kind of hits a wall, and they're like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I've kind of gone back to just being like just very simple in my faith. Being a good person, trying to alchemize my thoughts, just really trying to have like a selfless attitude towards people, walking in forgiveness. And, it's like these last couple of years have been really hard. It's been this growth, this constant stretching and challenging and like, okay, I don't know how to do this. I would just want to go back. I just want to go back to what's safe and normal. No, I got to learn how to do this. And, it's been a journey for sure. And so it's just kind of, I don't know. I don't know ultimately where it's leading. I don't know how it's all going to go down, but I'm not really worried about it at the moment. I'm just kind of walking it, like just trying to live in the present. 'Cause that's all that matters. It's all that matters, man. It's like the ego tries to just live in the future or the past, and the present is really everything tries to take us out of that moment, living in that present moment with people when we're in front of them, with our kids, with our significant others, whatever. We have everything challenging us to get us out of that. And so it's just, for me, more the last several years, it's just trying to stay in that present moment, Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful place, especially since when you've done the 1,000 miles
Yeah.
more or whatever, you can have that as like a milestone, being like, hey, I did that.
Yeah.
I got that accomplished.
Yeah.
We made it through that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right. Do you think that that journey really was like a sledgehammer to your I would say the rock of your existence, that you were said that you would have was what you were used to, and so now it's like you choose? Is it more natural now to go after the adventure, or is it more still a hard choice for you to do?
It's
That was a long question.
No,
I was
no,
trying to navigate where I was going, but
yeah. No, I think it's still a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think like if something presents itself to me, I'm more like that. I think is a possibility.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
okay.
There's without hesitation. But there is always this like. I don't forget the way I felt before I started all this. I never forget that. I never forget that discontent, that feeling of like, cause I mean, I still, like I said, I had to take the ice baths cause like it was starting to manifest in my body, like sickness, just pain. And like a lot of it was like, the chakras, the lower chakras, all where your creativity is and your gut and, all of that stuff. It was all manifesting there. And so, it's like what I've read is like, that's like soul sickness,
Yeah.
when you're like, that's actually probably the majority of what people are suffering from.
It's not going after the dreams.
Like a soul sickness. Yeah. Just being like, not being completely true to themselves with what they're doing. And I don't know. I don't know, man. I try to find that where that tension is, that sweet spot, because there is reality. You know what I mean? There is a reality of bills, and there's that reality of making ends meet and stuff and all of that. And you kind of, I probably expected it to be easier than it has turned out to be. That would be more of easiness with it. And it's just been a lot of growth and a lot of unknown and a lot of failure and a lot of like, uh, I guess just something opening up only to have it close. And, but at the same time, like I was talking with one of my friends over the summer and I was kind of in a low place. This last summer. And he just started like mentioning, like bringing these things to remembrance that I did in 2 years. And I was just like, holy shit, man. I accomplished a lot that I never would have done. I never would have been able to have the bandwidth where I was at to write a book, do the 1,000-mile journey, you know, do the life coaching, invest in that, investing, you know, I've learned a lot about investing and I've done that. And you know, I've done pretty well with that. So I've had to learn all these other things that I used to know exactly how much I was going to get paid every month, exactly how much my tax return was like, literally that's how I lived for, you know, several years. And it's tough. It's easier to just stay, you know,
to stay where?
To stay in the safety.
Oh yeah.
Easier. Stay in the safety. Don't ever take any risks.
Yeah.
Try it out. Do what's familiar. It's going to be easier, but it's going to be harder too.
It'll definitely be draining.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
It's, you know, you'll probably have to like eventually like deafen that voice to, you know what I mean?
The dream voice.
Yeah. Yeah. To where it's, I don't know. I don't know what cause it's never left me alone for 20 years of my life. You
my
know,
whole
it's
life.
Never left me. Yeah. It hasn't left me alone.
Yeah. 30, as long as I can remember. So when I was a child, so
yeah,
single digits, probably 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in entertainment.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, but let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Bamboo takes forever and then it shoots up 40 feet in a night.
Yeah.
And so it's like takes forever for it to pop the ground and then it pops up for 40 feet in one night. And
Okay.
That's one of the most remarkable. It's like it stays dormant for like forever.
Right.
Like forever and a half. And then it just like one night go bing.
Yeah.
Way up. And it's like, okay, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm having fun too. So it's like
yeah, man. It's I don't know. I just don't. I at this point, I kind of don't know how to do it any other way except to just like try, you know. And and I want to see everything come together with a lot of big things that I've been stewing on and dreaming about, and I'm starting to work on. And just see like kind of like a point where I can look back and just it all makes sense. It's not there right at the moment, but yeah, I'm just like it's one day at a time, you know, and I just
present.
Present. What step can I take right today? What step can I take right now? And I'm just kind of doing that and trying to focus on that. And, and you just kind of let the chips fall, and you know it doesn't have to look I think that's kind of something weird that I learned just like with like the social media world. You can think that it's got to look a certain way, or that
Absolutely.
You know that someone's on there teaching their program for exactly how to do it or whatever, and it's not very realistic. You know, a lot of it, it's like, you know, it's not always got to just be this. I just got to do this and my dream, and I got to make that happen. You might have to, you know, hold on to some work over here, or get you know, that like I did something for 2 months that I in my head I'm like, okay, well I can potentially make a lot of money doing this. And it's gonna all work. I tend to be very idealistic, at least initially. It's like I'm gonna make like $300K a year.
Right.
You know, I'm all set. I'm only there for 2 months, but I needed that 2 months. And it got me to where I needed to go in that moment. And I look back at it and I'm like, I have nothing bad to say about that experience. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about sales. I enjoyed the people I worked with. And it got me to where I needed to go. And it was just for 2 months, but it was like a part of my journey. You know? And so anyways, like that's the thing. It's, I like, there's I've read a lot of books over the last couple of years. I haven't in a few months. I'm kind of just taking my time with a few right now, but there's a book called The Surrender Experiment.
Okay. That sounds fun.
Yeah, so it was a guy, Michael Sanger, I think he wrote The Untethered Soul, which is a more popular book now. Okay.
Still don't know it.
So he's got an interesting story. I think he was going to law.
Okay.
He's gonna go to law school, and he was having this conversation with his brother-in-law, and it was a little bit awkward. I think like they were, not super close at the time, and so he was basically became that awareness. It wasn't like a psychedelic moment, but
Totally.
he became like that awareness where he was like, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to him. And I'm like, and he kind of like had that separation of ego and
Yep.
if this is voice is trying to impress him, what's this other observer that's watching it now?
Right.
So he became very interested in consciousness, went out into the woods of like the wilderness of Florida, bought like an acre or two, built like a makeshift home, like a small home, and just meditated. He just wanted to like explore his consciousness.
Interesting.
And at some, the story is crazy, man. It just leads to one thing after the next to where he's just like, I'm just going to surrender to whatever is. And so any opportunity, I'm doing it. And so before you know it, this 1 acre turns into like over 100 acres. And he is running like this huge, like technology business on it.
Weird.
Yeah, it's just a weird story, but it's just like he was just really just open to what was presented. And there's been an element of that, especially like at times that I don't know and there's nothing clear. Something comes up, yeah, I'll try it,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if nothing else, it's one thing I know I can just check off and,
Bingo. Yeah.
And, so I've kind of like that's what doing the RVing has definitely done. It's like, see something stupid on Indeed, like, oh, shit, I'll apply for it,
Totally.
and just see what happens. But, it's an interesting read, but, I kind of feel like that's kind of been a little bit more where I've been at in those moments where there isn't clarity, just surrender to what is and what presents itself and give it a try.
It's like surfers. They have to respect the wave, but they also got to surrender with it. You can't fight against it. Then they'll just plummet.
Yeah. It's like all of that. I mean, it's like, that, and that's something else that's like the hermetic laws, which are kind of but like hermetic laws is kind of like the perennial kind of philosophies that are underneath all religion and stuff that are kind of like universal laws.
Yes.
But it's all that stuff with polarity and all that stuff is real, the energy and the polarity and it's all like you try to do certain things with that, that resistance and you energize the wrong side of it. And,
right.
It's like, it's all real. It's all like, I've come to see it more and more. There's like a reality so much more than the 5 cents realm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's weird. It's so crazy how like the brain like can pick up on things, and it's just like how it's that we don't even realize it until after it happens. And then you look back on it, and then it describes itself like a real good twist at the end of a movie.
Right.
It's like you have the best misdirect at the very end, and then it plays back the whole movie. And
and you
like,
can see all the pieces. So, but that's kind of just how the path has been for several years, but a lot of growth, a lot of open-mindedness. You spiral. I mean, again, we move on a spiral. It's not a linear line,
right?
We spiral back to the same shit, the same type of people, the same, you know what I mean? Until the lessons learned. And so I found that like some of the, like almost comical, some of the things I've come back around to in a different face or a different situation.
Right.
And it's the same exact thing that I didn't handle right the first time. And, that's those moments though are so important to move on the path. And so, that's kind of how it's been.
That's amazing. Do you have a song for us?
Oh yeah. So when I thought about something that was impactful in my life story, I just simply came to the first song that I remember really impacting me.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like a pie in the sky impact.
Hey, it's whatever hits you, man. Like I've had all sorts of stuff. And why one of the things that why music is really effective to me is like my entire life. I didn't realize this. I've said it on every podcast, so forgive me if you've watched every other podcast, but that my entire life I've always seen a music video in my head when I hear music.
Yes.
So when someone gives me a new song, it's like transporting me to a new realm. And
Okay.
so it's kind of selfish, but also
yeah.
it's made an impact for you. And then it doesn't have to be like a super impact, but it's just like, why did you like this song? Or
yeah.
And so we'll listen to it and then I'll describe what I saw.
Okay.
And
Cool.
then,
Cool.
And I didn't realize it until till like a few years ago when my brother shared me a song and he was just playing it and I described the album cover pretty much to a T.
Oh, wow.
And he was
Interesting.
like, what?
Yeah.
Are you sure you haven't seen this? And I was like, yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I haven't heard this song at all.
Yeah,
And then he showed me the album cover. I was like, dude, that's happened my entire life.
Yeah.
And so
That's
now
wild.
it's just fun because I can, whenever I have a new guest on, I get to go to a new realm.
You probably have heard this one, but I was just going to say, like, for me, music, I've always been a very interior processor. And pain, my own pain, my own, I've never had a great way of expressing it. And music was like, I've from like grunge to hip hop to heavy metal. I mean, it has always been so much of a therapy for me, being that internal processor, that it's almost like some of these songs I connected to, and it was just like a relief. But the first song that I can remember having that impact on me, where I knew what it was about, and I understood what it was about, and it just like really shocked me, was Jeremy, Pearl Jam.
Never heard it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay. I'm being like a faithful to my grunge era, early 90s.
I know Pearl Jam, but I don't know the song. So here we go. And if you want to listen to it, we're going to cut this portion out because it's copyrights. Okay. That was wonderful. I never heard that song.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. I'm old.
No. I know. I've heard plenty of plenty of Pearl Jam songs and stuff, but they also have been around forever and been playing forever. So I probably only knew their newer stuff. But so as soon as I heard the first little strum, I saw like an overturned cafe table.
Okay.
Cafeteria table rather. Sorry. Cafeteria table, like the ones that have like the seats that are attached to the table and it folds up.
Okay.
And so they were just like all lined around the cafeteria and it was like a concert in like a high school. And then it got crazy at the end after the second Who's then the mosh pit kicked out, and then it fed into when it started fading off, like they had to call the police, and the police came in and broke it all up and calmed the whole place down again. But most of it was just like the head nodding, like as if like it was like Smells Like Teen Spirit music video. Like everyone was just like standing around nodding their head like a normal grunge, and then at the very end it started getting crazy. But yeah, that's a good song.
Yeah, well, it's a really dark song.
Yeah,
like it's so
I couldn't understand a word he said, but it's not to read the lyrics.
well, they did they like that was like when MTV was doing the videos and stuff.
Yeah,
and so like he wrote that after like if you like Jeremy spoke in class today, he was like a kid that basically he did it after an actual kid who like shot himself in school.
Oh wow!
In front of his class.
Dang.
Yeah. But that song made such an impact on me. Like I don't know, like if it was just like that, like always being very sensitive to just very in touch with my own kind of like pain and stuff like that, but very sensitive to other people too, and just seeing that just like that reality. I was probably, I don't know when that came out, like 10, something like that, 10, 11. And it like alarmed me kind of, and it just always wanted me to make me want to be good to people.
Right.
And just like no one to ever feel that pain.
Right.
you know, and like just find ways to relieve people from that suffering. That because so many, that's like, it's just like this, it's just the story, you know, like if you can't transform pain, you transmit it,
Yep.
you know, and either to self or others. And so I mean, I don't know. It's like it's a darker song, but it was just the first song that came to my mind that I felt like had a heavy impact on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it, man. We did an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's nuts how it goes so quickly.
Yeah,
So bye guys.